So, I've been on this weird binge lately of these old school pioneering movies, the kind that you watch decades later and wonder how anyone managed to make them. And I can't believe I nearly forgot about Akira. Oh my god, Akira. Off the bat, this movie feels impossible in 2026. Now, there's the obvious things that YouTubers and people are talking about: the monstrous budget, 160,000 cells, years of labor, the absurd level of detail, and yes, that is all super impressive. But none of that is what made me make this video. You may be wondering why I made my thumbnail in the first place, because the most unique thing about Akira isn't the animation. It's that it doesn't really feel animated, it feels filmed. Now, at the risk of triggering the entire anime manga community, I'm gonna put Akira in the top 5 of the greatest animes ever made. So let me just explain why. You see, the camera had weight to it. Light, in a way, behaves as though there's a lens sitting in front of the object. Objects occupy physical space. The movement is very deliberate. That sort of has consequences. Even the city seems to exist beyond the frame. But just hold on 1 second. Because there was no camera. See, Akira wasn't trying to make animation look better, it was trying to make it look real. And I'm not talking photorealistic real, but it's something far more ambitious. It tried to make an animated film feel like a live-action camera. So when I watched Akira again for the 1000th time, I started looking at it that way. And once you watch Akira with those concepts in mind, the animation becomes the least astounding thing about the film. I've been wanting to do this for a while and integrate 3D into my work, so we're gonna do a little experiment. Think about how a camera works. A live-action director has a physical object between the audience and the world. You choose the lens, you alter the focus, and move through the environment. Perspective shifts with every movement. Light catches the lens, motion smears across the frame, and depth changes with distance. These aren't some kind of decorative flourishes either. They're the consequences of having an actual camera. Animation has no such obligation. There's no lens to constrain the image. There's no shutter directing how movement is captured either. And there's no physical camera struggling to stay steady during a shot. You can simply draw what you want the audiences to see. But the awesome thing about Akira is that it deliberately recreates the visual behavior of photography. Let's look at the famous motorcycle shots from Akira. Those red taillights aren't merely streaks painted behind the bikes to communicate speed. No. They behave like long exposure photography, which is light that is dragged across the frame by movement. See, the camera appears to have a sort of weight to it. The bikes also have momentum. The city possesses depth, and amazingly enough, light spills across the surface instead of neatly just sitting on top of them. Now, the crazy thing is that none of this needed to exist to create an animated film. So I wanted to see what would happen if I create that logic myself. So I've just created a random 3D environment for us to experiment in. Now, as you can see, I can choose a lens, I can move the camera, I can adjust the depth of field. I can even introduce things like motion blur, or change the difference between the foreground and the background. Now, the objects haven't changed, but the image has. I can move the camera closer and the perspective stretches. I can change the lenses and the relationship between the foreground and the background shifts. I can also let the camera travel through the scene and the environment acquires a sort of physical geography. So what I'm trying to show here is that the camera isn't merely observing the world, it's kind of defining how the world exists. Now, after everything I've just said, remove the camera and try and do it all again, only this time, illustrate it. Your brain would break. That is the ingenious trick that Akira keeps pulling. There was no camera in Akira. They had to animate one. Now that philosophy extends beyond the motorcycles. The glass has weight when it breaks. The smoke occupies space. Light reflects and bleeds across surfaces. Backgrounds recede rather than simply sitting behind the characters. Even Neotokyo itself is constructed with the density of a physical location. There are thousands of tiny details that exist in every frame, every window. There are vehicles and signs, distant lights, things most viewers will never consciously register. I challenge you to watch Akira and look at all the frames in the background and see if you can find a duplicate shot, a duplicate element, duplicate assets. You will not find one. I looked, trust me. The mind-bending gravitas of Akira is that it's not simply drawing a picture of a city. It's constructing the illusion that a camera has already entered one, which is absolutely incredible. Now that you've done all that and you've built a world for a camera to inhabit, you need something for the camera to film. And that is people. Look, I said this again, but I had to watch it again for the umpteenth time. But my god, I wish I could watch it as if it was the first time. Because Akira does something really strange with the characters as well. The actors were recorded before the animation was made. Now I thought to myself, that's just like a minor production detail, right? But it fundamentally changes what an animator is working with. I'm sure you've all watched a bunch of anime, and in the conventional workflow of an animation production, the character exists first. The animation establishes the performance, and then the voice is fitted into it. Akira does the complete opposite. The actors performed first, and the animation had to catch up. So there were parts of the movie where I kind of had to, rewind and watch them again because it dawned on me that the animators weren't really asking where does his mouth move. They were responding to an actual performance. We're talking about some crazy level of movements here, a hesitation in someone's voice. Specific rhythms in a sentence. Maybe someone's, taking a breath before speaking, and the subtle expressions we don't really even pick up on. The outrageous thing here is that those details aren't contained within the dialogue, they're contained within the performance. Look, I know I'm going off on a tangent here, okay, but the actor isn't performing a sentence, they're performing with everything surrounding it. Watch the faces, the mouth moves, but that's not the most interesting part. It's the tiny movements around it, her glances, the pauses, these like weird shifts in posture, an expression that changes before the line is even finished. For live action, those details happen in front of the camera. For animation, someone has to consciously put them there. Every reaction and gesture, a pause or a decision, it's a decision that has to be drawn or timed. So next time you watch Akira and you see a character that's distracted or irritated or uncertain, you must realize that this isn't just a drawing trying to deliver dialogue. You are watching an animator reconstruct an actor's performance by hand. So what does it do with everything that is sort of surrounding these elements? You build a city. I hope you're enjoying this as much as I am, because I completely nerded out when I looked into behind the scenes, and it's very hard to find behind the scenes shots. In fact, only recently there's some behind the scenes footage come out about Akira. But really, Akira's special effects wasn't the psychic powers. It was Neotokyo itself. Most animated backgrounds exist to establish where the characters are. But Neotokyo feels like it has a life of its own. Traffic moves through the streets where windows flicker in the distance. Crowds drift off in between the buildings. Machinery continues to operate at the even edge of the frame. Smoke hangs in the atmosphere while rain and light interact with surfaces that could have been completely static. I didn't even know how crazy this statement was when I watched Akira again, because I am bewildered every time I watch Akira. Why? Because the city feels inhabited, not just illustrated. The best thing about Neotokyo is that it isn't some pristine futuristic megalopolis waiting for Tetsuo to destroy it. It's already crowded and fractured. You can feel that it's politically unstable, and there's a whole bunch of history embedded into the architecture. I swear, it feels like the city was there before we even arrived, and that's one of the most outstanding parts of Akira. Look, there are subtleties that we don't even consciously realize that are put into Akira, and yes, I am slightly obsessed, to breaking down and looking at how they make all of this. But if you take a single frame from any point in the movie, I'm talking about the foreground, the buildings, the vehicles, the lights, the atmosphere, the distant traffic, and then you look a bit closer, there are windows that occupy literally less than 2 pixels, and they are individually painted. There are tiny little elements and vehicles that exist deep into a frame. I mean, there's points where lights flicker in buildings that we never visit. Do you know how absolutely mental it is? Because no one watching this is supposed to notice any of that. You're supposed to just glance at a frame and accept it. That is the illusion. That is the beauty behind Akira, okay? Because it's not asking you to admire some fancy background. It's asking you to believe it exists. The only thing left to convince you that an animated city feels alive and exists is incredible sound. I'm not going to treat anyone that watches this video like an idiot. Obviously, sound makes a huge difference within any production you're creating. But it also might be the easiest part to overlook in Akira, for the simple fact that it works so well. Now, I'm not going to break down, and look at a clip and then take the sound away and then play it again with the sound, because you guys understand that if you're looking at a shot without music and effects, it just obviously is not going to be the same. So all you need to know is that it's percussive, okay? It has this strange ritualistic fusing of traditional musical influences with electronic textures that make it sound sort of alien. I mean, at this point, Akira has done something absurd. It has rebuilt almost every single component from a live-action film through animation. There's only one thing left to do, and that is the cost. I mean, it's impossible to not have a look at the bill, okay? And it's not just a financial one here. Akira was produced on an unprecedented scale with a budget of roughly 700 million yen. More than 160,000 animation cells, pre-recorded performances, labyrinthian soundtracks, elaborate compositing, and technology that was still in its infancy. Now, I'm not going to bore you with the figures because it's been repeated to death about people talking about Akira on YouTube. There's so many questions I have about Akira, but the budget wasn't really the story. And yes, I've said this word enough, but we can really describe Akira in one word, and that is consequence. Once Otomo, who is the director, decided to approach animation with the vocabulary of a live-action cinema, the production had to accommodate that ambition, okay? We're talking about camera movements that were constructed, performances, had to be worked in and translated. Every street had to feel inhabited. Every explosion needed weight. Here's another wild statement. The film spent an extraordinary amount of money through manpower, animation, hours, budgets to create something that technically didn't need to exist. That's what makes Akira not only fascinating, but a testament to human creativity. It wasn't merely trying to make animation more elaborate, it was trying to erase the boundary between animation and reality. So here's what it all boils down to. Akira was made in 1988, that's almost 58 years ago, and it imagined a future Tokyo in 2019. We're now 7 years ahead of that future, and the irony is kind of beautiful. We spent decades developing technology capable of generating entire worlds with a few clicks. Digital cameras can simulate almost any lens imaginable. CGI can construct cities from nothing, and AI can produce images that would once have required an army of artists. But if you watch Akira today, I can bet you that the reaction isn't going to be, look how primitive this technology was. It's going to be, like mine was, how in the hell did they make this? That's the legacy of Akira. It's not that it had better tools. It had an almost unreasonable idea of what those tools should be capable of. After all that work, Akira still, to this day, makes me forget that it was never real in the first place. There aren't many things that hold up for 38 years. It's a feat we can't soon forget.